Well, hello to the Nothing in the Rulebook community. Hope you're all safe and well and staying contented in these slightly scary times. My name is Andy Charman. I'm the author of Crow Court. There it is, that's Crow Court, which is published by Unbound and is out in January 2021. Crow Court is a novel set in Wimborne Minster in Dorset in the 19th century, and is comprised of 14 sort of quite separate sections, all written in slightly different styles. It's a little experimental, and it gives snippets of life from various different parts or aspects of 19th century rural community. One of those lives is a woman who's a composer, and I thought I would read you a little bit of her story. So this is the 6th section of Crow Court, and it's called The Peacock Shawl. Wimborne Minster, Dorset, spring 1849. I thought only of India, dead choir boys, and of lovers separated by oceans and injustice. After 2 days locked in the music room, all others barred, it was hard to believe I had nothing at all to show for it. And this after weeks of the same. It seemed I could neither write words nor compose music. So one morning I thought I might fix on the key. I chose E-flat major because it can sound so wistful, and by defining a specific aspect of composition, I hope to constrain my imagination and thereby force some product from it. Yet, after the morning's effort, the key was still all I had. Quite maddening, I told Harriet over lunch. She smiled and patted my hand. Dear Evelyn, she said. She is the wise old owl who knows how all ills shall be resolved. She suggested I should take myself away from the piano and let my mind settle. She knew nothing of the reasons for my troubled thoughts, but I followed her advice and walked around to Purkis's shop on the square. It seemed a pleasant enough diversion, although not in the least settling, because there were still notes in my head, and I kept worrying away at them like a mad old maid, picking and resewing the same stitches. On arrival at Purkis's, I asked whether he might have any new songs from London, and to my delight he had 3 by Eliza Cook. I bought these immediately for 4 shillings each, and then turned for home. So it happened that as I was leaving, with the bell of his shop door still ringing in my ear, I began to hear my tune. Not as if I was creating it, rather as if I was remembering a composition I had learned long ago, even though it showed itself to be entirely new. The whole first section played out exactly as I hoped it might, curling around the E, forever venturing away to explore musical curlicues and arabesques, and never quite settling, like an eternal nomad. This came entirely without effort on my part. It simply flowed into my thoughts, ready-formed, and it was exhilarating, a bracing wind on a clear day. To have the music display itself to me, it was such a divine melody, as balanced, flowing, and poised as any Italian sculpture. I had heard it all the way through before I was halfway home, and so I set about trying to repeat it in my head, but I realized immediately that if anything resembling another song should enter my thoughts, it would displace my inspired composition. It was in great danger. I scuttled back down West Street directly, keeping my face lowered for the precise purpose of avoiding any encounter with another person. And that was when I saw Harriet's niece. I knew it was Anne by her hems. She was standing on the corner of Church Street, and she offered me a greeting, but I closed my eyes and carried on by. Yet I think that did for it. I could sense it was lost, even though I continued in hope. Since no one was home, I told Mary I was not to be disturbed, and went directly to the piano, and I even managed to catch the first few bars. But what came after would not reveal itself to me a second time. Not in the same way at all. Worse still, once I had corrected what I thought were my notation errors in the opening, I could not reproduce the same freshness and life when I played it. More revisions only took me further from the original, scrawling over the inky notes so that eventually that small section was gone. It was, indeed, incontrovertibly lost. It had drained through my hands in the time it had taken me to walk home, a period that would barely register on a presentable pocket watch. And, no matter how I tried to recreate it, what came out of the piano was unutterably dull in comparison. I cannot think I ever experienced a failure more distressing. It was made worse because, even as I was suffering it, I was aware the impression on my emotions was quite out of proportion to the weight of the event. It might have been ridden out with perfect equanimity by someone more hardened to such sensations, but it is a weakness in me to feel with such alacrity. I stood among the blotted shreds of wasted music sheets, weeping, and whenever a teardrop hit the paper, it sounded like the death of another crotchet. That was how Harriet found me, standing still, considering whether the slenderest bones in my fingers might actually snap if it proved impossible for me to relax my fists. She placed her hand on my shoulder and waited for me to speak. Harriet is my Grace darling, forever rowing out to retrieve me from whichever storm-tossed rock I have wrecked myself on. It was quite beautiful, I told her. We stood quietly for a moment. Then I explained the only other thing I had known about the song I had lost. E flat major.